So if you've ever tried to learn a new language, you definitely know this feeling. You've spent hours memorizing vocabulary, you've drilled all the grammar rules, but then when you actually try to speak, something just feels off. You feel like you've hit a wall. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden rulebook that native speakers use without even thinking about it, and why knowing it is the real key to sounding fluent. Okay, take a look at this. This is a real email from a university student to their professor. Just let that sink in for a second. It's direct, it gets the point across, and it probably makes you cringe just a little bit, right? I mean, technically, the sentence structure is pretty solid. The words are correct, but it comes across as super demanding, almost rude, doesn't it? The problem here isn't grammar. It's something much deeper, a set of unwritten social rules that this student, even with their academic English, completely missed. And you know what? This exact experience has a name. It's called the fluency plateau. It's that incredibly frustrating point where you feel like you've just stopped getting better no matter how much you study.
This right here is that wall. You find that you can build perfect sentences, but when you actually try to talk to people, it feels clunky or unnatural. And worse, you might accidentally cause misunderstandings or, like in that email, come off as rude without meaning to at all. If you've ever felt that, believe me, you are not alone.
So, how do we get past this plateau? Well, we have to understand that language really has 3 different layers. The thing is, most learners only ever master the first 2. So, let's break them down. First up, you've got syntax. This is your basic grammar, the blueprint for building a sentence. But as the famous linguist Noam Chomsky showed, you can have a sentence that is 100% syntactically correct, like colorless, green ideas, sleep furiously, and still have it mean absolutely nothing. So correct grammar is just the starting point. Okay, layer 2 is semantics. This is simply the literal dictionary definition of the words. It's what the words actually say. So if syntax is the skeleton, you can think of semantics as the flesh and muscle. It makes sure the words you chose actually make logical sense together. But even with perfect syntax and semantics, you can still run into major trouble. And that brings us to the secret sauce, pragmatics. This is the missing piece of the puzzle for so many people. It's the unwritten rulebook that's all about context. It's not what you say, but how you say it. Pragmatics is what tells you how to politely ask for something, or how to apologize in a way that sounds sincere. It's the difference between, give me your comments, and, I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to look over my paper yet. Let's look at another one. A student could walk up and say, I need your help with our project. We won't do well unless you help me. I mean, grammatically, it's fine, but pragmatically, oof, it's a disaster. It sounds so demanding. Now, what if they said, excuse me, professor, I'm having a little trouble with my section. Do you have time to meet later today? See the difference? The goal is exactly the same, but the social outcome is completely different.
Okay, so if pragmatics is so critical, why is it so hard for adult learners to pick it up? Why can't we just, talk more and absorb it naturally? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, and it's buried deep in neuroscience.
You see, when we're adults, our brains love to form habits. And if we keep practicing a mistake, whether it's a small grammar error or a socially awkward phrase, our brain eventually starts to treat that mistake as the correct way to do it. This process is called fossilization, and it means your errors can literally become permanent, hardwired into your brain. This is exactly why the old saying, practice makes perfect, can be so dangerous. As English coach Yuri Skija puts it, that's only true if you're practicing the right thing. If you're not careful, just having more conversations can turn into an opportunity to practice your mistakes over and over and over again. Here's what's actually happening in your brain. Every single time you say a phrase, a specific pathway between your neurons fires up. The more you repeat it, the more that pathway gets coated in a fatty substance called myelin. Think of it like paving a dirt road. Each repetition adds another layer of asphalt, making the road smoother and faster. Your brain just wants to be efficient, but here's the kicker. Your brain doesn't care if you're paving a road to the right destination. It just paves whatever path you use the most. So if just talking more can actually make bad habits stronger, what on earth is the solution? You can't just unlearn a habit. What you have to do is build new, stronger pathways that are more efficient than the old ones. And to do that, you need what's called a blended method. This is all about using a mix of proven techniques. Things like audiovisual methods, watching scenes from movies or TV shows, expose you to how the language is really used in context. Guided role-playing gives you a safe space to practice these new skills. And structured drills and repetition are what actually build and pave those new, correct neural pathways.
Now, you might be wondering, why is watching a sitcom more effective than studying a textbook? It's because it gives your brain a very specific kind of information, one that's perfectly optimized for learning.
This idea comes from a groundbreaking theory by the linguist Stephen Krashen. He called it the input hypothesis. He argued that we learn a language best when we get input that is just a tiny bit beyond our current level. So think of I as everything you already know. The I plus one is that new little piece of information that you can just barely understand because of the context around it. That's the sweet spot. And movies and shows are just packed with this I plus one input, pushing you just enough to grow.
All right, we've talked about the what and the how, the technical skills. But there is one final piece to this puzzle, and honestly, it might just be the biggest one. And it's all in your head.
This is another brilliant idea from Stephen Krashen. He called it the affective filter. Basically, negative emotions like anxiety, the fear of making a mistake, or just low self-confidence can create a powerful mental block. When that filter is up, it doesn't matter how great the teacher is or how perfect the material is, your brain literally can't absorb the new information. You ever been put on the spot and your mind just goes totally blank? That is your affective filter slamming shut.
So how do we lower this filter? It really comes down to changing your mindset. Instead of trying to be perfect, set tiny, achievable goals for yourself. Maybe just successfully ordering a coffee. Then, when you do it, actually celebrate that win. And most importantly, you have to find or create a learning space where it feels safe to make mistakes. Because mistakes aren't failures, they're just data.
Because at the end of the day, becoming fluent isn't about collecting a bunch of words and grammar rules. It's about learning how to truly connect with people. It's about understanding the unspoken dance of interaction, the pragmatics. So the real question is, you've learned the words, but are you ready to learn the conversation?